The night was heavy with silence as the stars stretched endless above the valley. The small group of humans and their alien ally had been hiding in the broken remains of a forgotten village. The wind carried the smell of dust and smoke. Their breaths were slow, almost frightened, and each one knew the hunters were coming closer. They had tracked them for days without rest. The alien woman named Lyra had warned them that these hunters were not men at all, but something far worse. Her fox-like ears twitched with every faint sound, and her golden eyes burned in the dark. Her body was strong but tired. The human named Claire could see how the alien woman pressed her hand to her ribs, where a shallow cut bled under the makeshift bandage. Claire whispered that they could not keep running. The hunters would push them into the ravine, and there would be no escape. Lyra agreed, but she said that a stand must be made. The hunters were cruel, and if they caught them alive, their fate would be worse than death. Claire clenched the old rifle she carried and tried to steady her shaking hands. Another human, Daniel, checked the charge pack of his weapon and nodded grimly. The silence broke then with the first sharp whistle in the distance. It was a signal. The hunters were near. Dark shapes moved among the stones, their eyes glimmering like small burning coals. The hunters fanned out with a skill that was practiced and merciless. Claire fired first. The echo cracked through the valley, and sparks leapt from the rocks as one hunter dropped, but more came forward. Arrows of light shot past their heads and struck the walls behind them with violent bursts. Daniel shouted for cover, but Lyra did not fall back. She charged forward with a cry that shook even the cold night. Her blade cut through the air, and the first hunter split apart with sparks and oil spilling across the dust. The fight turned desperate in moments. Hunters closed in from both sides, their strange weapons humming. The humans fought with fury, ducking and firing, but each missed shot cost them precious ground. Lyra's movements were quick and fluid, yet her wound slowed her step. A hunter slammed into her with steel claws, dragging her across the stones. Claire screamed her name and emptied the rifle into the creature until it fell in broken sparks. The air was filled with smoke and the cries of battle. The ground shook as explosions from hunter weapons struck closer and closer. Daniel took a blast to the shoulder and fell back against the broken wall, clutching his arm as fire spread across the ruins. Claire pulled him to cover, but saw that more hunters were climbing the ridge above. They were surrounded. Lyra staggered up, her blade dripping with oil, her body covered with cuts. She shouted that they must push forward, or they would be torn apart. Claire knew she spoke truth. With one deep breath, she rose and fired again, driving back the nearest group. Lyra leaped beside her, and together they cut a path through the smoke. Sparks lit the night like storm fire. Their ears rang with the clash of metal against stone, with the hiss of alien engines, the desperate cries of humans who would not kneel. At last the hunters faltered. Their leader stepped into the clearing, taller than the rest, with a weapon that burned red at its tip. The air itself seemed to bend around him. Claire raised her rifle, but the shot bounced harmless against his shield. Lyra whispered that this one was ancient, that no single strike could break him. Yet they had no choice. With her last strength, she hurled herself at him, her blade clashing with the burning weapon. The force drove sparks in every direction. The two figures spun together in a storm of light and steel. Claire and Daniel used the moment to strike at the lesser hunters, thinning their numbers with desperate fire. The battle became chaos. Stones split and walls fell. The village became a storm of smoke and dust. The ancient hunter pressed Lyra back, his weapon screaming as it cut through her defenses. Claire saw it and knew she had one chance. She loaded the last round of her rifle and aimed for the energy core at his chest. The sound cracked through the night. The round pierced the shield just enough for Lyra to drive her blade through his heart. The hunter let out a shriek that rattled the stars before collapsing in fire. The other hunters froze and then withdrew into the dark without another sound. Silence fell heavy once again. Claire lowered her weapon, her body trembling, and Daniel leaned against her with blood staining his coat. Lyra dropped her blade, her golden eyes dim but steady. They were alive but broken. The hunters would return one day, but tonight they had survived, and survival itself was victory. The stars burned bright above them, and in that light the bond between human and alien was carved deeper than steel. For in the face of death, They had stood together, and together they had endured.